if he could play some more, the answer is going to be yes, 100%. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and I'd want to play some more as well, too. So,
well, I would love to see that, man. I would pay money to see that.
And if I play, I guarantee I would be kicking Leo Gibson because he's too doggone good.
Greetings, everybody. This is MASL Monday. I am Alex Bastubanski. Great to have you on board for both our MASL webcast and for the very first time, our debut on Sirius XM FC channel 157. And it's going to be a fantastic ride over the next few weeks. And joining me for my very first guest on our debut on Sirius XM FC is Eddie Puskarich. Eddie, welcome, brother. How you doing?
I'm excited to be here, man. I'm so thrilled about having Sirius on board and me being with you. I'm a big fan of yours, Alex, and your show. So thanks for having me.
And of course, Eddie is a broadcaster along with Matt Thornton for the Dallas Sidekicks broadcast, and a legendary arena soccer player himself, which we're going to touch on a little bit later in the show. But today, Eddie's going to talk us through sort of some of the stuff that went down over the past weekend in the MASL, as well as the coaches convention, which he was part of a couple weekends ago, along with the MASL brass. So we'll get to everything today. And Eddie, let's start off with Eastern Conference and Milwaukee. Interesting weekend for Milwaukee. The highest highs and then the lows in the second game. Let's start off with their first game, though. Clash of the Titans, the two leaders in the Eastern Conference, then taking on the Florida Tropics. The Wave take it 6-5. What'd you think of the contest?
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, you've got two of the best franchises in the East. I mean, Florida's got Reggett and some great players, and you've got Ian Bennett, who's a reigning MVP. I mean, so what better way to set up for some fireworks? And what a great ending, too.
A fantastic ending, and the man that our producer, Phil Levanco, has nicknamed Mr. Inevitable, Ian Bennett, of course, who it's inevitable at some point he's just going to put the ball in the back of the net. He scored 2 goals in the game, first start of the game, to make it a 38-game goal-scoring streak for the 2-time reigning MVP. The next day, Milwaukee goes to Kansas City to take on the team they're currently tied with for first in the East. Everyone was expecting a massive encounter between these two top dogs, and 10-4 Comets. More to the story than just the scoreline on a couple things. But, Eddie, Milwaukee ends up sitting a significant portion of their starting roster that they played against Florida the night before. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts on that. And obviously, Jules is an old teammate of mine from our days in the Milwaukee Wave, and mad respect for him. I think from a player standpoint, you want to play as many games you possibly can. And sometimes from a coach's standpoint, you want to rest certain guys. We forget it is a very long season. Do I agree with how the NBA rests some of their all-stars that are back-to-back games? No, I don't. So the player in me, you know what? Play everybody, win every game, and see how the chips lie for the rest of the season. But I do get some of the resting scenarios as well, too, because you maybe have a couple of guys got some knocks or maybe a bit of a flu bug going around or other conflicts. So it's a dicey sword to start resting players when you've got a chance to compete for first place in the division.
Yeah, I should point out, obviously, KC not tied with them. It's Florida that's tied with them, but KC hot on their heels. And Leo, the legend, player coach, like a fine wine, just keeps getting better and better, turning 40 this summer, 6 points in the game. First star, Eddie. This guy just continues to produce year in, year out.
You know, I talked to Leo in the offseason here at the combine they had here in Mesquite back in October, and he was debating if he was going to play or not. And I think when the whistle blew and the season started off and Casey didn't have a great start, I think the juices in him as a player wanted to get going. And you got 6 points. I mean, Leo can still play. I mean, he would have a spot on my roster. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, he's been absolutely unbelievable. Scary moment during the game. And I want to get your perspective on this as a former player, of course, in the arena game for years. And that was right at the start of the second half. James Togba, untouched, but going hard towards the boards, ends up tripping. He falls headfirst into the boards, and just scary moments in KC. And thankfully, he was fine. He ended up getting stretchered up, going to the hospital, ended up with a concussion, I believe is what it was. But give us your perspective as a player, the play as it went down, and just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate. The good thing about it is we're all happy to report is he's doing really well. There's no underlying effects that we know for right now. But, people forget this is a fast-paced indoor, soccer contest with lots of contact. And it was unfortunate. It happens sometimes. He hit the board awkward, with his head. And we're thankful he's okay. But it's just part of the game. You know what I'm saying? And it also goes to show the importance of our sports medicine staff that are present at every game, as we witnessed a few weeks back with the Bengals and Bills in that Monday night situation there with DeMar. So I think everybody needs to really give a pat on the back to our sports medicine teams for just being there when we need them the most.
I was going to say that props to the KC staff, the people they have on board to get out there on it right away, taking care of the situation. Massive respect also to Nick Vassos and Eric Bergerud, the commentators for the KC Comets, who kept things very calm and explaining to everyone what was going on, not jumping to conclusions. And also just what a great moment. Togba giving the thumbs up to let everyone know he was okay after, because he was out cold into the boards. Watching the Milwaukee players, the care that they showed for him, for me, it was a Bengals-Bills moment where in that moment, and you can attest to this as a former player, everyone is a teammate in a situation like that. Yeah.
It's a fraternity of soccer players, Alex, and we want to win that game as much as possible. But when a day's finished, you know what, you're brethren, and you want to wish the best for each other. And in this case, it worked out. From all indications, he's on the road to recovery, yeah?
He is. And I'm just going to read the statement that he put out on Instagram. And this was yesterday. I was released from the hospital 12 last night, feeling much better. Thank you for all your thoughts and prayers. I'm currently reading the heartfelt messages to the Comets fans and fans of the league. I greatly appreciate you all. To my teammates, thank you for finishing strong. To the players of the Wave organization, thank you guys for reaching out. It means a lot. Accidents happen. No individual is to be blamed. It's part of the game. Love, Togba. And then I love what he puts at the very end. Hopefully my mom don't see this African parents thing.
Hey, what a quality statement, though. Huh?
It's just good stuff, man. And I'm so glad that he's okay. And I mean, I know this is secondary at this point, but James is having such a fantastic season so far as well. He's already been a defensive player of the week. So speedy recovery to James. So glad that he's okay. Really quick, Eddie, your take on the KC Comets and their performance so far this year.
Well, I think we talked about earlier with Leo Gibson being a big factor. I mean, you've got three words for KC: Sosa, Sousa, and Gibson. I mean, you've got those three guys who are at the top of their stats and points, and those three guys alone are going to make you competitive. But you add the fact that you have some other good players in that team as well too, and I think they're going to get their stride and be a force to reckon with as this season progresses.
And the calls are going to grow louder and louder for player coach Leo Gibson to play every game this season. Of course, the plan was at the beginning of this year. We talked to Eric about it. We talked to Nick Vassos about this. He was trying to step back a little bit this year and said he was going to play on an as-needed basis. They need him every game, though.
Alex, if you ask any former player if he could play some more, the answer is going to be yes, 100%. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and I'd want to play some more as well, too. So,
well, I would love to see that, man. I would pay money to see that.
If I play, I guarantee I would be kicking Leo Gibson because he's too doggone good.
All right, man. Let's move to the West. Monterrey, great week for Monterrey as they take on, first the game against Mesquite and then secondly against Tacoma. Let's talk about the Mesquite game first of all. Absolute cracker. 6-5. They take down the Outlaws, who have been exceptional this year in overtime. Great game.
Yeah, I think you've got two of the premier teams in the West that are going at it, and you've got, I mean, the Outlaws, who are just, they're on fire right now. They're playing really well as a team as well too. And Monterey is one of those indoor roles we spoke about off camera. You just sometimes get into a rhythm, and you just, every ball bounces your way, and it's going your favor, and massive overtime win.
And injury rearing its ugly head in
Another
this
one.
game as well, which I mean, it's what can I put? It's rare to see any kind of serious injury. MASL arena soccer is a physical game, man. But two of them this weekend, and Steven Chavez ends up with a broken shin for Dallas, and had to be carted off the field. It's the nature of the game, though, isn't it? It's a physical game.
That was a real unfortunate situation because both players were going lateral with the play. That wasn't a goal scoring situation, and it just with two legs came together. It was unfortunate. I think it ended up being a blue card. The referee crew thought after video review was shown. Personally, I thought it was just unfortunate. But he does have a broken shin, I believe, and that's just one of those casualties of indoor soccer. Again, I think no intent at all. In the injury process there. It was just an accident.
Yeah. And their second game of the weekend, Tacoma, 7-6 overtime win over a Tacoma squad it's been a very competitive squad so far this season, and bodes well for them, the fact that they hung with the Flash and made such a game of it. I don't think Tacoma thinks they can't beat anyone this season the way that they've played the Stars up to this point. But great game once again there.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're winning, Monterrey is winning these tight games, it bodes well for their confidence, their player confidence, which, as you know, that's the most vital tool any coach can have when your players and team feel confident. And Tacoma, slow start, as you mentioned, but I tell you what, I mean, they're a team that I don't want to face them in Dallas here at all because they're on a roll right now as well too. Even if they lost that game, they can take a lot of positives from that overtime loss.
Nick Pereira continuing to light it up as well. Like we talk about the fine wine guys. I think Nick's 36 now, and exceptional performance from him once again. San Diego, I feel like we actually haven't talked a lot about San Diego on the show this year, and that's only because I think it just seems like business as usual for the Sockers.
There's a saying that I use often, and it really applies to San Diego. You can't buy experience in a pharmacy, and you've got a team that not one individual is taking a team on their shoulders. It's just a group of guys that have a belief in each other. In Dallas, they were down 3-0 in the first period, and there's not one guy, out of sorts, Coach Phil and his staff are keeping guys in check and stick to the game plan, and it ended up being, another victory for the Sockers. They have just they're the best team in this league, and their winning streak continues to prove that.
So it's now 28 straight wins.
That's insane.
In regulation. That's crazy. So that is the longer regular season win streak in MASL history. And before we start talking about your history in arena soccer and stuff, it's worth asking you this question. Where do you think this Sockers team would go down in the annals of arena soccer history against some of the great teams of the past?
Well, that's a great question. People don't realize that some of the great indoor teams in the past were formed because we didn't have any outdoor teams, didn't have any outdoor leagues. So all the best players, we all played indoor. And we had, 20,000 seat arenas, and we had, it was just a lot of money for salaries and stuff like that. I don't think they would stack up against the Steve Jungles and Julie V's and Bronco Segodas, Brian Quinn's of their past. But boy, that would be fun to watch, wouldn't it? Because today's athlete is faster, stronger, maybe a little bit better coach if you ask Coach Phil.
So it's like the time machine argument. If you could take this team today and go back in time and put it up against a side that may have had more overall talent, but now we're talking about modern training methods and stuff.
Yeah,
I love to play the time machine game sometimes.
Yeah.
It works in every sport, right? So
I still put my money against the old Sockers though for right now. But I tell you what, though, they didn't have a 28 game winning streak though like this team has. So
yeah, it's unbelievable. San Diego taking down Harrisburg twice on the weekend, 5-3. Good on Harrisburg to keep it that close in the first one. I think the second one was a little bit more along the lines of maybe what some people were expecting, 11-3 for San Diego in the second contest in that one. We got to touch on Empire, who at the start of the season and then into the first few weeks of the season, I believe it was 11 straight losses. They just collapsed down in the stretch one last year in a playoff spot, lose it on the last weekend of the regular season, out of the playoffs, lose their first 3 games, I think it was, this season. And now they're on a roll, man, doing great. And unfortunately, it was against your sidekicks that they kept the roll going against.
Yeah, well, I think they ended their losing streak against the Sidekicks to start their season off, and then they took 2 out of Dallas this past weekend, and 2 games that weren't even really that close. So unfortunately, Dallas is a bit of a bad spot. At the same time, the Empire is just, I mean, so, pardon the pun, they're a force. I mean, they're just you got Frank Taillou, who's back to his scoring ways. I mean, wow.
Justin,
another player I take on my team as well too, by the way.
Yeah, for you, just keeping on Empire one more second here. Gabriel Costa, how did he impress you? And is he your front runner for Rookie of the Year right now?
I think he has to be in the discussion. I mean, he's another player that's just quick, lethal. He has a big engine right now. I think he's you know what? Speaking of players, I'll take him on my team as well too. So right now, you're building my team and my franchise for me, Alex.
We're going to get to that. We're going to have you build the team, which players you'd start with. Let's touch on your sidekicks though, and it's been a painful season so far. Yeah. There's no question about it. There's no way we can sugarcoat it. At the moment, 0-9-1 to begin the season. No wins for this proud franchise that has meant so much to the Dallas region going way, way back. Give us your take on the sidekick season so far and what some of the problems have been, Eddie.
I think it's first and foremost, I would say frustrating. They've been streaky. They'll go down by 4 goals and they'll score 3 goals back, and then they'll give up 3 more goals, and they'll be down by 3 goals and they'll score 2 goals, come close, and then they'll give up 2 goals again. And it's been a case where every ball, when you go on a losing streak, Alex, your dog poops in the house, your wife's dinner doesn't taste as good as it used to, and right now every ball is bouncing against the sidekicks. Right now they're giving up a lot of goals. They've got Juan Gamboa, who's being peppered in the goal right now, and they just got to figure out a way to rally the troops together, maybe have a little bit more defensive-minded responsibility. They've got to stop the bleeding on the goals that are going in right now. They're giving up 10, 11 goals a game, and you're not going to win very many games in that regard. But they still got some talented players. You got Jamie Lovegrove, you got Cameron Brown, you got Christian Quintana, Gustavo Piedra's having a great year. You got some young rookies with Rodriguez and Guzman who are playing well. They're just not gelling as a team right now. And Coach Ricardinho is working his tail off to try and get these guys on the same page.
Talk about Rodriguez for a moment, because Alberto Rodriguez leading the team in scoring right now. So definitely, if we're looking at positives, that would be one of them this season.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. Really had a couple of 5-pointers and 6-pointers there, and he's been really consistent. Unfortunate loss of discipline there in one of the games where he got a red card. I think it was against the Outlaws. It cost him a game, but he's one of the bright spots so far, and they've got to work on some of his bright spots, diminish some of the negatives, put those in the back burner, and you got to play one shift at a time, one goal at a time, one shot at a time.
Let's move into the Mesquite rivalry, because, of course, the Outlaws returning back to the MASL this season for the first time since 2019-20. So the Dallas Derby, alive and well, quite the rivalry, especially with some of the players that have gone back and forth, or a lot of them to the Outlaws actually this season. talk about the rivalry between these two teams, though. And I mean, obviously, this must be great for the Dallas soccer area having this kind of rivalry to look forward to.
Yeah, there's a couple of schools of thoughts on that. There are some that don't like the fact that you have two teams in the same town. I personally do. I think it's great. I mean, you've got first you have travel partners for a team like San Diego that comes in town. They can play Dallas on Friday, Mesquite on Sunday. So from an economic standpoint, it makes perfect sense. I love the fact that you've got some rivalries, like you got Man City, Man U, in the same town and things of that nature. So I think as this rivalry goes, it'll be better and better. And look at the games. The first game they lost by 2 points. The second they lost by 1 point on a last-second save by Cortez. And then the third game went to overtime. So the players are familiar with each other. There's no animosity at all from the coaching staff. I mean, the coaching staff, all three of the coaching staff, Tattoo, Sagu, and Nick Stavro, were all legends of the Dallas Sidekicks. They've got, I think, between 10 and 12 players that used to play for the Sidekicks. And I had a good chat with Tattoo for one of the last games. And he goes, Eddie, you know what? He goes, I'm always going to be a sidekick. So there's no animosity between the players and stuff like that. And if they do it right, they can start sharing sponsorships and TV spots and things of that nature. But I think it's a great win-win for the league. I think it's a positive for the players. You've got more player opportunities to play in the same town, opportunities for coaches. So I think I'm excited about it. I can't wait. And we play them again on Sunday. So
yeah, and I was going to say another positive for the Sidekicks is how close they've played Mesquite, who is a legitimate powerhouse in the league this year. And you guys have played them, aside from falling behind. I think it was in the first game you guys played, the second one, big time. But you always narrow that gap in the end, and the score ends up being really tight. Really quick, let's touch on Luis Morales, though, who was a Sidekick last year, Rookie of the Year. Made the move to Mesquite this season, which was painful, obviously, for the Sidekicks, but just quickly touch on his performance this year. And I mean, this guy's a legit contender for most valuable player, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't lost a beat after last year's Rookie of the Year. And it's funny because I would be one of the commentators that would be forcing to his left, forcing to his left, forcing to his left. He cuts to his right, hits a bomb with his right foot. So he's got a special talent. He holds the ball. He has the ability to keep the ball on a string, as you can tell. He's got a good mentality to the game. He works well with his teammates. The sky's the limit for this kid. And as you said, he is a definite MVP candidate for that team.
Right. And just a reminder to everyone who's watching and listening that to watch MASL games, every single one from start to finish, live and archive of all games, you can head to Twitch TV, twitch.tv/MASL_soccer. All MASL games are on there. MASL TV on YouTube for this show, MASL Monday, and all kinds of great content, including all the game highlights. And right here listening on Sirius XM FC channel 157. Throughout the season, there will be 10 MASL regular season games broadcast. The KC St. Louis game, by the way, which we barely even mentioned the overtime goal and everything there, but that was the first broadcast last week on Sirius XM FC. What a great game, Eddie, to get things started with, though. So it's a great new partnership between the Major Arena Soccer League and Sirius XM FC. Eddie, let's talk about the past and present of arena soccer, because you were a huge part of the past 650 plus games. You split between the Major Indoor Soccer League and it was and the NPSL, pardon me, which it became afterwards. Man, just give us a couple stories. What was it like back in the day playing in those leagues?
Well, it was I turned pro in 1984, and unfortunately the NASL, which is our premier outdoor league, had folded that year. So here I am trying to find a place to make a living, playing the game I love. And so indoor soccer came a knocking, and it was fantastic. I mean, the memories, the stories that we had that were just flowing. And I'm not sure you noticed or not, but I hosted the Back to the Future 2 at the coaches convention a couple of weeks back. I had the honor of having Keith Tozier, who was our MASL commissioner, JP Delacamera, the legendary broadcaster, and also the MASL media tycoon. And we had Dr. Joe Matchnick. So we had a panel of us four, and we were sharing stories, and it was phenomenal. I think it's important to know, and I was just listening to your statement a minute ago about the broadcast things, where this league has come from right now. It's never had as much momentum as it has in the last couple of years. I think it's important for indoor soccer to try and find a level that's attainable. I think playing in arenas like the Texas Credit Union and Allen Event Center, which has got 6,500 seats, I think it's phenomenal. And the Baltimore Civic Center downtown, and you got some of these arenas that are perfect. So the game has come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. But I think if we can learn from the past, we'll be a lot better and to avoid those same mistakes. But we had John Kowalski, who was the old coach of the Pittsburgh Spirit, in attendance. We had Juan Carlos Machia there. We had Michael King, a Wave legendary Hall of Famer there as well too. So it's just got a great future for indoor soccer. It's got to find its niche. I think we're on our way. Sirius XM involvement, Twitch involvement. These are all great achievements for the MASL.
And it really is true what people say. You watch it once and you get hooked.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop action and excitement, arena soccer. And we're so happy to be part of this partnership with Sirius XM FC. We're running out of time. So what we're going to do is let's talk about a couple of things from the past weekend. Let's start with your favorite goal, your goal of the week, Eddie. Which one was it?
My favorite goal of the week is Ian Bennett's goal from Sizzle Marcio Late Day. It's a game winner versus the Tropics, two of the teams that are fighting for first place. And it's another statement where big players show up in big games, and reigning MVP Ian Bennett showed that right there. But that was a great game and a great goal and game winner.
The man I like to call the Canadian assassin. As a fellow Canuck like myself from Hamilton, Ontario, Ian Bennett now on a 39-game goal-scoring streak. I'm going to take Christo's game-tying goal for St. Louis against who the heck were they playing on? Against KC, pardon me. How can I possibly forget that? The game-tying goal, 0.9 seconds left in the game, unless they get forced to overtime, which they did. And it wasn't because it was the most aesthetically beautiful goal over the weekend, but just the dramatic fashion in which it was done, and Joey Zanaboni's off-the-charts call, of course, for the St. Louis ambush. So that was my goal of the week. And give me your moment of the week if you were to pick one, Eddie.
My favorite moment, I love overtime games. I think, and I actually had a couple overtime winners in my career that you remember those forever. You can tell your grandkids about them. Give me Eric Tovar, the overtime winner, the flash over the Outlaws, not because they were against our hometown team, but because of the manner in which it was scored. It was a great game, and it just shows how the Flash have to be reckoned with. They keep scoring goals like that.
Awesome. And for me, I'm going to pick an emotional one, and that is the thumbs up moment.
Yeah.
Where James Togba on the stretcher, who was initially out cold in the game against Milwaukee, and stretchered up, awake, and giving the crowd a thumbs up to let everyone know that he was okay. He was able to move his extremities. And not just that, but the response of all those Wave players who surrounded him, along with the KC players. As we said before, they're all teammates in a moment like that. And for me, that could have been so much worse. And I'm so happy to see that James is fine. So that thumbs up moment for me, thumbs up to you, James. We're all thinking about you and glad that you are okay. So that's my moment. Eddie, it was awesome to virtually meet you for the first time, because this is how we have to do it in a lot of cases. We're also spread out in different cities. So fantastic stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Alex, it's been a pleasure. Big fan of yours. You do a great job, buddy. All the indoor soccer fans really enjoy your show, and I can't thank you enough for having me on. It's been a true honor, buddy. Thank you, my friend.
You and Matt Thornton do a fantastic job in Big D.
He's the best play-by-play guy in the league, buddy. I just feed off of him.
He is awesome. Please give my hellos to Big Matt. And
Absolutely.
that's it. We got to wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching us, folks, on MASL TV, and for listening for our very first broadcast on Sirius XM FC channel 157 every Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. MASL Monday will be on. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you next Monday.